Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Mande Guru Paramparam. Om. The topic I have chosen to speak on today will be the Ashtanga Yoga, or 8 limbs of yoga, how we can use this as a sadhana, as a spiritual exercise. This is based on the talks by Osho and Swami Paramarthananda. The ancient India has got 12 philosophical schools. They are classified as Astika and Nastika. Nastika is those philosophical schools that do not believe in the authority of the Vedas. They are the 4 Buddhist schools, the schools of the Jaina and the Charvaka. Those schools which are the Astika schools, those that believe in the Vedas, are Sankhya, Yoga, Vaisheshika, Nyaya, Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa. Today we are going to the school of yoga by Patanjali. The school of Patanjali has got 2 aspects. One is the philosophical aspect, which is called the Yoga Darshana. The other is the sadhana aspect, which is the Yoga Sutras. Vedanta does not accept the philosophical part of Patanjali called the Yoga Darshana, because in the Brahma Sutra, Vyasacharya has argued against it. However, Yoga Sadhana, which is called Ashtanga Yoga, is an excellent discipline for us as a spiritual practice, which has been accepted by Vyasacharya and Adi Shankaracharya. Coming to the definition of yoga. Yoga is defined as Chitta Vritti Nirodha. The word Chitta means mind. The word Vritti or Pravritti means functioning. Nirodha means disciplining or functioning of the mind. Essentially, what we need to see, how we can make use of yoga or Ashtanga Yoga as a discipline that can harness the greatest instrument that we have, our mind, and make our mind as a useful tool that is available at our service and not to dominate us. Ashtanga Yoga means the 8 limbs of yoga. They are Yama, Niyama, Asana, pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. The greatness of the mind is that it is the greatest instrument that we have to achieve all the human goals like Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. And Ashtanga Yoga is a wonderful tool to be able to discipline our mind, harness our mind, and to help us to achieve our objectives. The mind, however, has certain serious problems. One of the problems is that it tends to dominate us whenever we become very emotionally upset or depressed. It can generate thoughts on its own and thereby may not be available for us. There is a famous Zen story where a certain king of a province visits a Zen master and says, "Oh master, can you tell me the way to heaven?" The Zen master looks at him and says, "You fool, you do not know the way to heaven." The king was so upset, he takes out his sword, and the master now remarks, "This is the way to hell." He suddenly realized this is a strategy by the Zen master. Very awarefully and meaningfully, he puts the sword back in the sheath. And as he's doing it so awarefully, the master remarks, "This is the way to heaven." So Zen has a means to say that whenever you are doing anything awarefully, you experience heaven. Whenever you are living unawarefully, you are in hell. Yoga is a wonderful tool to help us to remain in the present. One of the problems of our mind is when we are so full of thoughts. I may be speaking to you, but your mind is registering so many thoughts. Instead of listening to whatever I speak, it is possible that you could be listening to some of your own thoughts. Why we are not able to recall, memory recall is a problem because registration of the information has not happened. If I am processing too much information at the same time because I'm worried or I'm anxious or I'm depressed, then there is a thought attack. And therefore, when I'm in a meeting or when someone speaks to me, my mind still goes to those various thoughts. And therefore, I'm not able to recollect what someone has told me. And I think I have loss of memory. So the important problem is that yoga can be a tool to reduce the number of thoughts. There is a Upanishad called Amrita Bindu Upanishad, which has a very famous quotation which says, Mana eva manushyanam karana bandha mokshaye. The same mind which is the cause of bondage, if properly trained, can lead us to freedom. Today's topic is how we can use the various limbs of yoga to harness our body and mind so that we are more productive in achieving our human goals. If our mind is not it is not accessible to me, then I have a problem. Thereby, there are three Sanskrit terms. I want to be a better karta. That means I need to function in this world better. I need to be a better bhokta. Bhokta means I need to be able to enjoy the goodness of the world. I need to be a pramata. A pramata means a knower. I need to be able to use my sense organs to become aware of the world around me. I can be a better karta, a better bhokta, and a better pramata if my mind is available for me all the time, and if my mind is not hijacked by negative thoughts or toxic emotions. Again, my brief is how I can use all this through Ashtanga Yoga. Swami Paramarthananda ji has given a talk on the 10 commandments of Hinduism, where he has spoken on Yama and niyama. What are the yamas and niyamas? The 5 yamas in this order are ahimsa, satyam, asteyam, brahmacharya, and aparigraha. The 5 niyamas are saucham, santosham, tapaha, swadhyaya, and ishvara pranidhanam. These are the first 2 limbs. So little details about the 5 yamas. Ahimsa means non-violence in thought, in speech, and in action. Satyam primarily is a verbal discipline where we do not speak lies, where we do not speak untruth. Asteyam literally means non-stealing, but it refers to any unfair financial transaction. For example, when we have not paid, a person is due, we come under the category of asteyam. Brahmacharya means chastity or having a proper attitude towards sexuality, and aparigraha means to reduce our needs to the bare essentials. Osho has spoken in very glorifying terms about Patanjali. He says Patanjali is a rare flower. He has a scientific mind, and he uses his scientific approach to reach the inner. He has titled his books on yoga, Osho's books on yoga, as the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. Osho says for 5,000 years, no one has been able to improve upon him. And because of this scientific attitude, Patanjali has had a great impact on the Western world. Many similarities between the approach of Bhagwan Maharishi and the work of Patanjali. Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi has summarized the entire Vedanta in 4 words. And the words are Naham, Deham, Koham, Soham. Meaning, I am not this body. So Bhagwan has made a diagnosis of our primary problem is our identification with the body and mind. Once we have made the diagnosis of the problem that it is because of my identification with the body, how do I disidentify? Bhagwan's method is koham, to inquire, to use Vedantic tools to inquire who I really am. And then through the process of vichara, through the process of inquiry, I come to discover I'm not this body and mind, but I am saha aham asmi. I am that consciousness because of which I'm able to speak, because of which you are able to listen. And that is Bhagwan's approach. I want you to see the main sutra that we are discussing today of Patanjali, where Patanjali says, by practicing the different steps of yoga, for the destruction of impurity, there arises spiritual illumination which develops into the awareness of reality. So Patanjali talks of practicing Ashtanga Yoga, those 7 steps which lead to samadhi. The ultimate goal in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is to attain to samadhi. Sam means together, Adi means the Lord, how you can be one with the Lord. And he says this is possible by the destruction of impurity. What is the impurity? Osho reminds you again and again, don't say that the body is impure or the mind is impure. It is not the impurity of the body. It is the body identification which is the impurity. And therefore, Osho describes Patanjali's method as very similar to what Brihadaranyaka Upanishad calls it neti neti. Not this, not this. It is a surgical dissection to say, I am not my body, I am not my mind, I am not my emotions. Go on until you reach the negator, and you reach that to a point where you cannot negate yourself, until you reach a point where you come to the negator. So for the destruction of impurity is through the process of negation. And once the impurity is removed, that means once the wrong identification is removed, just like when you remove the rocks, the spring arises on its own. There arises spiritual illumination which develops into the awareness of reality. So the whole Ashtanga Yoga is to remove the blocks through Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and to attain to Samadhi. As I've already said, the greatest impurity is body identification. Why am I not this body? Because I'm aware of the body. I am the possessor of the body. I use the body, and therefore whatever I can become aware of is something that I use, I'm aware of, and it is not me. The same logic for thoughts, for emotions. So sequentially keep on negating. Yama in English is translated as self-restraint. Self-restraint looks like suppressing, and suppression is not a good word, because whenever you suppress, it expresses it in the wrong way. Osho says in the days of Patanjali, the word yam or yama had a totally different meaning, because the meaning of the words keep on changing. King George of England was taken to see the St. Paul's Cathedral. St. Paul's Cathedral is in the highest location of London. It is a masterpiece of art, and Christopher Wren was very happy to take the king to show his masterpiece creation. And when the king looked at it, he used 3 words. He said, it's awful, it's amusing, it is artificial. Listening to this, Christopher Wren was so delighted with the compliments. The meaning of the words has changed over a period of time. The word amusing was meant at that time amazing. The word awful was meant awe-inspiring. And the word artificial was meant to be artistic. And that is why the word yama means, it seems to be a repression, but it is not really self-restraint. Just like the banks of the river which can direct our energy, the first 5 steps are how we are able to interact with our families, with the people around, so that we are in greater harmony. Osho talks so much, and he has a tremendous amount of admiration for this person, an enlightened master, a contemporary of Ramana Maharshi. His birth and death are almost match the birth and death of Ramana Maharshi. The word Yama is a bridge between you and others around you. George Gurujev, when he was just 9 years of age, he was called by his dying grandfather, and his grandfather tells him, I'm a poor man, I'm a simple person, I don't have much to give you, but I want you to remember this much. He says, if somebody insults you, don't answer him for the next 24 hours. After the 24 hours, you can do whatever you want. But for the first 24 hours, if somebody makes you angry or upset, don't respond, wait for 24 hours. The boy was so taken up by these words, and later on in his works, he has said, this has laid the foundation to my whole spiritual awakening, and he's considered one of the rare enlightened masters contemporary of Ramana Maharshi. Coming to niyamas. The 5 niyamas are listed here. The first, according to Patanjali, is cleanliness in thought, word, and deed. Cleanliness of your body, your clothes, your workplace, and the place of your residence. He says there must be a place for everything, and everything should be in its place. And this is the niyamas. Have a contented mind. Tapaha means do everything in moderation, regular scriptural study, and everything that you do, make it as an offering to God. Niyama is so important that you should have a very fixed discipline in life. You should do everything with a certain regularity, because the natural instincts of the body is laziness. If there is nothing to do, the body tends to be lazy. But if you have a certain niyama to be able to follow, then you are able to regulate your life much better. Once you have worked on yama and niyama, you come to the body. And as far as body is concerned, Osho highlights a few things about asana. He says about asana, at this moment and every moment, can you be aware of your entire body? Like when we do meditation, we say become aware of the whole body from the tip of the toes to the top of the head. Can this sense of body awareness be there all the time, whether you're doing any activity or not? This sort of bodily awareness is emphasized by every great master, and Patanjali calls it Sthira Sukha Asana. No unnecessary movement, no unnecessary shaking of your limbs. Don't unnecessarily keep your body very stiff. Keep your body, when you're seated, in a proper, balanced, upright position. Asana has all to do with the body, a relaxed body. Only then, when you master a very relaxed body, a body that you're aware of, then you're able to transcend the first limb of the body identification. We next move to pranayama, and pranayama is becoming aware of your breathing. Gautama Buddha gives a lot of importance to breath awareness. In fact, his first speech at a place near Varanasi at Saranath was this. He says, when I take a big breath, O monks, I know I have taken a big breath. When I take a small breath, O monks, I know I have taken a small breath. And when I take a medium-sized breath, I'm fully aware that I have taken a medium-sized breath. The greatness of pranayama, and as doctors we will be able to appreciate, is the link between the mind and the body. We do not have direct connection with the mind. Sometimes we are doing a procedure under local anesthesia, or even if you want to examine a person, you keep the body very tense. One of the tools a doctor uses is ask a person to breathe deeply. And whenever you breathe deeply, the mind tends to relax. Automatically, the body also relaxes. Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi has used certain famous words in the Upadesha Sara, which goes like this: Vayu Rodhanat Liyate Manaha Jala Pakshivat Rodha Sadhana. Vayu Rodhanat, by the controlling of the breath, Liyate Manaha. The more you become aware of your breath, the number of thoughts become less and less. Jala Pakshivat, just like a bird which has been trapped in a cage. You are able to control the thoughts, you're able to control your mind. And that is how pranayama is one of the most wonderful tools to be able to control your mind. Later on, I will tell you how Osho helps you to work on your emotions, to work on your depression through this understanding. This is another link that Bhagwan Ramana has given us. Chit vavayava chit kriya yukta Shakayor Dvai Shakti Mulaka. Shakti or Maya is the source for both the mind as well as for prana. The sattvic part of Shakti becomes the mind, the rajasic part becomes the prana. And thereby, by manipulating your breath, because both are so interlinked, you can alter your emotions. So prana and breath are equally linked. And this is a masterpiece verse, and I want you to meditate on this. It says, Nashta Manasaha Utkrishta Yoginaha. Utkrishta Yoginaha means the highest level of a yogi has been able to understand the mind as a tool and completely master it. By Nashta Manaha does not mean destruction of the mind, but means complete mastery of the mind. So at no time the mind can dominate you. And if you are able to overcome the lower mind, as we see in Mundaka Upanishad, the lower bird, and identify with the upper self that you are, he says Swastitin yataha, the one who is anchored in the higher self. Krityam astikim, what is there to be done by a person who has anchored on his higher self and has overcome Utkrishta Yogina. He is the highest form of a yogi. Coming on to the greatness of pranayama, because the prana has the ability to regulate the mind. As I already said, one of the earliest techniques of pranayama, not the earliest because Patanjali's Yoga Sutras have come even before Gautama Buddha. The simplest form of breathing technique given by Gautama Buddha is called Anapanasati Yoga. Anapanasati Yoga is what Buddha described. You don't have to alter your breathing. You don't have to complicate your breathing process. Just become aware of your breathing, whatever you are doing. It is just an awareness of your breathing process. Osho says it was okay in those days when the human mind was much more simpler. And today, because the mind is so much more complex, we have to give masters now complicate the whole breathing process by giving more and more steps. This is according to Osho. He says, pranayama is one of the greatest discoveries that has ever happened to human consciousness. He says a few tips about how you have to understand your breathing technique. He says there is nothing very great by learning pranayama from a certain teacher. He says, look at your own breathing, how your breathing is when you're happy, how your breathing is when you're depressed, how your breathing is when you're angry, how your breathing is when you're feeling very low. And if you're feeling low, and if you want to get out, if you're very angry and upset and you don't want to act out of your anger and upset, he says, change your breathing pattern. Because every breathing pattern is linked to a particular form of an emotion. So when you change the breathing, you cannot sustain the same emotion over a certain period of time. So that is Osho's technique. And therefore, if you can know your breathing pattern, when you feel good about yourself, you can picture that situation and try to reimpose that when you are feeling low or whenever you're feeling angry, so that in that way you can work on your emotions. And that is the tips that he gives you for pranayama. Then comes Pratyahara. Pratyahara means a 100% return. Pratyahara, according to Swami Paramarthananda, is retrieving your mind which has been hijacked by involuntary thoughts. Aharanam means bringing. Pratyahara means bringing back. I am the original owner of the mind. I reclaim my mind through the process of Pratyahara. Now, if you are flying and you see the course of a river, sometimes you see a river, instead of going from the source like Ganga at Gangotri, for instance, instead of flowing from Uttar to Dakshin, it takes a reverse course and goes Ganga Uttari. That is why it's called Gangotri. Now, the Hindi word for stream is called Dhara. And whenever the river reverses its course, that place where the river takes a U-turn is considered a holy place like Varanasi, Haridwar. These are all places where the river has taken a U-turn, because now the river is no longer a dhara, a river has become a radha, and the radha is one who is a beloved of the Lord. So now we are talking about Pratyahara, and Osho talks about Pratyahara is very similar to the repent of Christians. The word repent comes from a Hebrew word which means return, coming back. The Muslims use a word called Toba, which also means coming back. Pratyahara is coming back home, because we have gone far away from ourselves. In our quest for more and more, we have gone away from ourselves. And this is very similar to the 12th mantra of the end of the first section of Mundaka. It says, Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan Brahmana Nirvedam Ayat Nasti Krit Kritena. Tat Vignartam Sa Gurumeva Abhigachet Samitpani Shotriya Brahmanishta. Once you realize that you have gone far away and you're not going to achieve anything by yourself, now you decide to come back. This 180 degrees turn is called Pratyahara. Swami Param talks about port. He says we have to work on, if you really want to access yourself, we have to reduce our possessions, our obligations, our relations and transactions. Now, during these periods of lockdown, when we suddenly find ourselves in a kind of a vanaprastha stage, we realize how important it is that this state is important, that we reduce our transactions to an extent that we have more time for inner or spiritual growth. This verse from the Bhagavad Gita has got this word called Atmavan. Atmavan means becoming very much aware of your body and mind. Shri Krishna says, Traigunya Vishaya Veda. You can be involved in all forms of material activities. But over a period of time, enough is enough. We need to call and say, let me come back. Come back to what? Nistrai Gunyo. Move away from the material to the spiritual. Don't be too focused in Nirdvanda. That means don't do many prayaschitta karmas. Nitya Sattvasta, be anchored in the Sattva. Don't worry about your yoga and kshema. And be more focused on Atmavan. He says, I will take care of you if you are able to be focused on the Atmavan. Atmavan means being aware. And the being aware is in 3 steps. The 3 steps together are called Sanyama. And the 3 steps are, the 3 meditative steps are Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Dharana is the first step where the teacher makes you focused on one mantra, one symbol, one alamban, or the one deity in front of you. It can even be a flame. So you negate everything else, and for a certain period of time, for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, you focus your attention on the object in front of you and nothing else, and you train your mind to be so single-pointed, and that is called dharana. From dharana, you move to dhyanam. In dhyanam, there is no object of meditation. Now, from the object, you have come to the subject. You have come to the one who is in meditation. And when you persist on in that state of meditation, when meditation becomes an everyday thing, when meditation becomes in and through every experience of yours, then you come to a state of samadhi where you are in oneness with the Lord. Dhyana, in dhyana, there is no object, it is pure subjectivity. Osho talks about 2 eyes, which I can compare to the lower bird and the upper bird. The lower bird, he calls it as the ahankara, and the upper bird is asmita. And when you come into pure subjectivity, he says you come to a state of asmita or pure amness. But there is a danger that when you are in meditation, even a slight disturbance can disturb you from meditation. And there is a possibility of fall. That is why it is so important to gate, paragate, to go beyond parasam gate bodhi swaha. Osho talks about yoga brashta. In India, we have this word yoga brashta, means one who has fallen from yoga. Now, this is a very strange word, because when you call somebody a yogi, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna. This is a term of appreciation. But the yoga brashta is a condemnation, because a person has fallen from yoga. He has reached to certain heights, but he has not been able to reach the objective. Samadhi is a state from where there is no return. A person has become a Buddha, a person has become a Mahavira. You may be in this world, but you are no longer in this world. Patanjali gives you all these 7 steps to reach samadhi. Now, in conclusion, I will give a few exercises that Swami Paramarthananda has helped us in our spiritual exercises. And this he spoke when he's talking about the 16th chapter. When I went to listen to the 16th chapter, because there is not much of Vedanta, I thought there was nothing very great in this chapter. But when you look at Daivi Sampat and Asuri Sampat, and you realize the amount of limitation there are within yourself, unless we are able to work on these limitations, spiritual goal is going to be a distant goal altogether. And Swamiji has given a 5 pathway to help to work on those limitations which tend to inflict us again and again. This is very much related to the question Arjuna asks in the 3rd chapter, where he says, Bhagwan, I know what is wrong, I know what is right, but I still keep making those mistakes. Shri Krishna very nicely replies, Kama Yesha, Krodha Yesha. And the next few verses he gives how to attack the enemy, how to attack or work on the sense organs, mind, and the intellect. And Shri Krishna has given a very nice technique. Swami Param has given a very powerful 5-point formula to see that we don't fall back or repeat the same mistakes. It is said that we do not do many mistakes. We do few mistakes, but there is a problem. The computer in our bodies have been programmed to work on, or that we commit those mistakes again and again. So the first is, I'll read them. It is Viveka, Sankalpa, Pratipaksha Bhavana, Satsanga, and Prarthana. This needs to be remembered because we tend to make these mistakes again and again. First is Viveka. Viveka means tell your mind very clearly that each time I do this mistake, I'm damaging myself, my body, my mind, and my spiritual objectives. It is not going to, I need to get out of it. It is not good for me. I know it is not good for me, but how do I work on it? Swamiji gives a very powerful example. He gives an example of a person who's not had food for a long time. Food was served, not only food, but the best food that he loved. And the food is there in front of him. And he's about to eat, and somebody comes and says, wait, please don't eat. And the man says, see, I just cannot wait. I'm extremely hungry. No, he says, please don't wait. I have a little doubt that the food that is being served to you might be contaminated by potassium cyanide. Now, however hungry you may be, are you going to touch that food which is poisoned by potassium cyanide? That is Viveka. Now instill potassium cyanide in what I don't want to do. So that is a no for me. To reinforce this is by Sankalpa. It is the determination that I will not do it. Pratipaksha Bhavana is a very important sadhana also. By Pratipaksha Bhavana means, now instead of going towards the source of my mistake, go in the opposite direction. One example is, if I'm a miserly person, let me go into dhanam so that the miserliness is neutralized by my tendency of being dhani. Swamiji talks about the Vali example. Vali had a boon that whenever somebody faces Vali, 50% of the energy goes to Vali, and therefore Vali can easily defeat you. Whenever an alcoholic or a smoker wants to give up smoke or alcohol, but if he goes to a situation which is conducive for smoking, or if he sees the bottle, 50% of his energy goes to the bottle, and thereby he is not able to control himself. This is what is called Pratipaksha Bhavana. Two more sadhanas is Satsanga, keeping a proper company, and also Prarthana. Through these 5-point methods, he is able to help you. Finally, 2 more stories, and one powerful story is, sometimes you see a person taking a dog for a walk, and your question is the man taking the dog for a walk, or is the dog taking a man for a walk? Whenever you're angry, whenever you're upset, whenever you're depressed, who is taking whom for a ride? Friends, the greatest tool that we have, symbolically I've put it, is our mind. Is our mind under our control? Are we available to look at Ashtanga Yoga, particularly pranayama and asana, body-mind awareness, and Pratyahara, which means coming back to myself, using meditative techniques like dharana and dhyana to be able to attain to samadhi? Swamiji also talks about what is called the FIR rule. What is the FIR rule? The FIR rule is an index to say how frequently I get upset, how intense is my upset, and the R stands for recovery. So if you keep a personal index of frequency, the intensity is classified as mildest being mental, more severe means verbal, and even more severe is the bodily form of a reaction. With that, I would like to conclude with the Ratha Kalpana example. The Ratha Kalpana example we know time and again, where in the Kathopanishad it is mentioned that our sense organs are, the horses symbolize the sense organs. The mind controls our sense organs. But the big question is, who is controlling my mind? Is it my ahankara or is it my asmita? If I can be like Arjuna, if I can give controls to my higher self, if I can Ask Sri Krishna to drive my life. My journey of my life will be towards, more towards Shreyas rather than to Preyas. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.